Good afternoon, folks. Thanks for joining us on this press release. I think over the last few days, many of you have been paying attention, or at least had recognized we had a serious crime that took place up in our Parkland District, and I want to make sure we give the community all the facts related to that case, as well as recognize some of the great work that was done there on behalf of, one, to my right, I have our district commander, Captain McCardo, who is here representing the Parkland District. I also have the lead investigator who really put together a remarkable case, Stephanie Simmons, who did a great job on this. This really started taking back on almost a week ago. Last Monday, unfortunately, one of our local residents in Parkland, returning home from work, was brutally attacked, held basically hostage in her home, and property was stolen, and she was also sexually battered. This is something that's a heinous crime in any community, but most certainly when it's someone who's gone into their own home and they've been violated to that capacity. Fortunately, over the span of the last 5 days, members of both our Special Victims Unit, our Robbery Unit, Crime Scene, Crime Lab, our Burglary Apprehension Team, Viper, and again, our BSO Parkland District worked very well collectively to bring this case to somewhat of a closure. I kind of highlighted somewhat of the nature of the criminal offense, so let me tell you about the criminal himself. Due to the investigative practices and the way we led up, we were able to arrest an individual named Antonio Dole. This individual is a career criminal. He was out on probation for armed burglary, and this is the consequence of letting someone out who perhaps should stay in custody. I want to go back to the nature of this crime and what it did for the entire community. Throughout Parkland, throughout this entire community, I personally received a multitude of different calls from elected officials, religious leaders, and many other stakeholders as to whether or not this individual was in custody. And so we're happy to get him off the street. What I'd like to do is just take a moment and go through some of the things that are very important about this case. One of which is, this is not something that we've seen to be a pattern or a serial rapist or a serial criminal, and the fact that he did this a multitude of times over a span of several days or weeks. Let me just put that to the rest now. It doesn't mitigate the severity of what he did. It doesn't mitigate the severity of his criminal activities, but we don't need the community unnecessarily alarmed thinking that there's more potential victims to come or something that we missed. For more specific details in terms of the investigation, I have Detective Simmons here. I also have Captain McCardle here. I think it'd be easier at this point if I just roll it back to you all. You can shoot some questions out to me and I'll try to answer the ones that I can. Who would like to start?
Did the suspect know the victim?
At this point in time, we have no indicators that there was a personal relationship of any kind. This appeared to be something that took place where the suspect, career burglar, knows the way to case a house, decided to break into that home and didn't leave it at that. One thing about breaking into a home and stealing someone's property, those things can be recovered. But when you steal someone's dignity and their humanity, that's a burden that the victim's going to carry forever. There were some minor property, jewelry, things to that extent, which our detectives were able to recover when we located them down in Miami. Just standard burglary practices. There's nothing unique in the sense that typically these guys knock on a door, they case an environment, someone answers, they know someone's home. If they don't, they go around the backsliders, etc. Again, an individual with his type of criminal history and his track record, he knows the ins and outs on how to avoid the detection from getting in, but he made some significant mistakes in this one, and the fact that he also left his DNA on scene. This goes into something that we've been very adamant about executing and capitalize on is our crime scene, our crime lab, and pulling DNA together. You've been here numerous times and heard us talk about closing cases out with DNA, and this is one of the things that's just going to solidify and help us and have a very positive conviction. This goes back to the community. Guys, you see something, say something. Don't get too tied up on, hey, it may not be important. Let us determine that. It's oftentimes, where we've seen this happen, oftentimes, a tip will come in and it may have a very minuscule level of interest for us as investigators, but over time we keep those tips and they keep compounding, and it gives us the ability to tie it back into a tighter case. And this is another message to the community. I've seen some social media posts, there's a couple questions. Hey, can you guys, we want to know more. We will give you as much as we can as we execute these criminal investigations, but the last thing we want to do is blast out some information that, one, isn't accurate, hasn't been confirmed, or two, tip off the suspect to where he vacates deeper and further away from Miami. Now we have to go up to, let's say, New York to try to get him. So to the community, bravo, thank you for trusting us, sharing that information. It wasn't a waste, and we got this villain off the streets. Part of our crime scene and our crime lab was to verify the DNA processing elements because his DNA was already in the database. And so it was easy for us to just take what we developed on scene, process it, and do a comparison. So all that was executed in part of the arrest. If you can, for just a second, because I have a lot of members of our Viper team and BAT team here who are constantly out in the field doing the toughest work in terms of law enforcement, tracking down some of the worst villains that we face in this county. And they continue to do so exceptionally well. They do it at the highest level of professionalism, and their level of commitment goes unquestioned, and that's why you have them all here sitting here today. So bravo, gentlemen, thank you for your efforts.